Tonight, July 29th, 2021, Belizean Workers Rights. This is an independent initiative. I'm your host. Our co-host is our brother Dean Flowers. Good night, brother Dean.
Good night, Sister YaYa. Good night, Belize. Good night, Sister Trisha. Our host. Wait, how would we refer to Sister Trisha? Our technical
Administrator.
administrator. Yeah,
Yes, IT person.
yeah. She has been faithful. Uh,
Yes, she has.
has never failed us a single week. And so thank you very much, Sister Trish. And again, very pleased to be here, Sister YaYa. Um, we started off this thing back in May surrounding Labor Day and, the whole labor movement, labor empowerment. And we're now nearing a big celebration. I know we won't touch on that tonight, but, Emancipation Day, something that you're strongly behind, and I want to congratulate you on that and the wonderful work of promoting that and pushing that. And I felt it important to mention that because I don't think that it is it is something isolated from the labor movement. Actually, it surrounds organization, as a matter of fact, and so I think they're interrelated, and we can definitely relate, or we both can relate to each other, both the Emancipation Day as well as the labor movement. No?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good night, Brother Philip. We see you're here. You've been consistent. The first half hour, Brother Dean and I will reason about a particular conversation. And we have a sister, Cynthia Pitts-Musler, joining us tonight. And the conversation is the power of workers. And interestingly enough, and thank you for that acknowledgement, Brother Dean, that you should bring up the fact that Belize is going to be recognizing African Emancipation Day as a public and bank holiday for the first time this year. And it's important that we say African because so many people have been emancipated. And this is a time to reflect on the sacrifices our African ancestors made for us to still be here. The intention was for us not to be here. We're still here. And really, Brother Dean, I didn't think about the connection, but there really is a connection, a serious connection. So I'm asking you to just bear with me, make a read one passage, and then I want to give it to Brother Dean for making you understand how much this, because people would ask, what does 1838 have to do with today? It has everything to do with today. So I'm reading from Colonialism and Resistance in Belize, Essays in Historical Sociology by O. Nigel Boland. And this particular chapter 6, Labor Control and Resistance in Belize in the Century After 1838. In Belize, which has been a British colony in all but name since the 17th century, a handful of the self-styled principal inhabitants monopolized the land, labor, and commerce of the settlement. Until the 1830s, this white settler oligarchy also controlled the institutions of the settlement's government and administration to a degree that was unusual among British colonies. A brief summary of the nature and extent of this oligarchy's power is necessary in order to appreciate the continuities that existed in structures of the nation before and after 1838. At the end of the 18th century, when Britain still acknowledged Spanish sovereignty over Belize, the principal inhabitants of the settlement passed a series of resolutions known as location laws by which they allocated vast tracts of land to themselves and treated such land as freehold private property. A shift from logwood to mahogany cutting at this time encouraged the concentration of land ownership and the evolution of a settler oligarchy. Within months of the passage of the location laws in 1787, the superintendent reported that 12 settlers held four-fifths of the available land under the 1786 treaty, or about 2,000 square miles. The other great concentration of property was in slaves. In 1790, the 20 largest estates possessed a total of 1,085 slaves, or about half of all the slaves in the settlement. The same large land owners and slave owners used their connection with London merchants to develop the import trade so vital since the local cultivation of provisions was prohibited, and consequently they controlled retailing. They also controlled taxation and fixed the price of plywood and mahogany. Now, now you see why we are where we are. Because this was the way the system was created during the enslavement of our people. And at the time that we got what myself and others identify as flag independence, these systems remain intact. And with us not knowing our authentic storylines as African and indigenous peoples' children, then we have no knowledge of how to analyze in a meaningful way why we are where we are, especially as people of color in Belize. Dean, where I get out of where I read. You hear how them people control all the settler oligarchy, and the Mandela is known for sharing information like this. The settler oligarchy control things, not the crown. And as you continue to read the crown, they push back on it like, yo, we not really got no, we not run nothing here. The settler oligarchy, they run things. The people with the bag of money, they run things.
Yeah, and nothing, and let me say that nothing has changed when we look at modern day, and I will use the term modern day slavery because that is the phrase that everybody is using. Nothing has changed now that we are in the 21st century. However, I still think based on the my exposure in terms of trying to increase my knowledge that this thing that all about perception. And people might say, no, it's reality. And it's reality because we perceive it to be reality and so we accept it. But if we understand that nothing in life is easy, and so it cannot be that we speak about this oligarchy and this capitalist system and this slave driver type system, but we don't want to suffer the same, well, I won't say the same fate, but how did our ancestors free themselves? In most cases, they revolted. In most cases, they stood up. How did the abolition of slavery came about? How did Black people obtain rights in the U.S.? By resisting. So our problem today is that we don't understand that we can say no, we can resist. We're too caught up in our comfort level. We're too caught up in what will I eat, what will I wear, how will I feed my kids, not understanding that there's a higher power at play, YaYa, and standing up, you will endure difficult times, but that too, as the Bible said, this too shall pass, that too will pass. And so for me, it's about how do we change the mindset of our people? How do we increase their power, the power of their mind to understand that nobody can control you? So this nonsense or this perception that the oligarchies run things, they will only run things for as long as we allow them to. But it starts with our mind. It starts with our mindset. That at least that's my perception of the thing of, 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 of this conversation and what you read just now.
Well, it is said that perception is reality, and you cannot tell the people who are unemployed that it's a perception, that it's their mindset that they're unemployed, that they're unable to pay their bills, that people are dying. That is not a perception. And so it's to understand that it's a process. We didn't always know what we knew. There was a time when we were as colonized mentally as many of our sisters and brothers are. So it's to recognize that it's a process and to respect that people are at different stages of their development,
Yeah.
and to be patient and kind and loving with them, which is not always an easy thing to do. And so it's in going back into our stories. For many people, when we say they're in survival mode, I've learned that there is trauma. As African people, we were born with trauma. On Sunday Review, we have a clinical psychologist from Belize. She's a Belizean. Her name is Dr. Elma Whitaker Agustin, and she'll be talking about the psychological impact and the damage of African people from living through enslavement. And so there's no way you can ask someone honestly to actively engage when for generations, because of the systems that we talked about earlier being intact, that's the repercussion of those systems. So when you have a colonized judiciary, legislation, everything is set and it remains that way, that you're going to school to be a laborer. You're not going to school to develop critical thinking, to be creative, to um, to challenge system of oppression. That's not what the school system is about in Belize. So how can we then ask people to participate and stay committed and have confidence? We don't know our story as African people. We don't know the stories of resistance and victories at great sacrifice, families dying, people losing their families. It's intentional that we don't know those stories because those stories inspire people. And so you have to look at how strategic some of our own people have been in our own demise. And some conversations are tough, but it's to understand that people are at different levels of awareness and to just be patient with people and to lead by example. And to understand that not because something is legal means that it's ethical or moral. Because the enslavement of people was a legal entity sanctioned by churches and governments. And so that's why they still have a responsibility. People were enslaved through the Catholic papal bulls, and they benefited from money from the enslavement of people, and they're still living off those monies. That's why reparation is so important. But if we don't know that, if we don't know that we come from a people who resisted in so many ways, especially our sisters. A lot of the research I'm doing is new for me. I could, and I have made mistakes, and I accept when I make a mistake and someone correct me. To say that when the our brothers primarily were taken to the Lagood spaces to work and not be paid, forced labor, that Belizean was primarily women and elder people. And they're gone for 11 months. I didn't know that. Did you know that? Dean, did you know that it was for 11? I didn't know. So imagine they're gone for 11 months. Those sisters have to figure out how they're going to navigate these systems of oppression. And they developed a sisterhood in many spaces. They develop a kin. And so that were part of Bembe get nurtured, these courageous sisters. So we always resisted. And then when the brothers came back, like 1 year out of the month, you have all kinds of real social family dynamics. And you always remember the oppressor are looking at you as not human beings. You're always property. So you never see. Can you imagine living like that?
We would never. I don't think we'll ever be able to imagine it. Yeah, yeah. But one thing I keep reminding myself, and I think we have to accept, life is unfair. Life will never be fair. Um, but I will repeat. For me, I think that a liberation from all that is feeling of powerlessness. Um, it all starts in the mind. It all starts in the mind. And when let's reflect on the days of slavery. When a slave decided that he would rebel and run away, um, that's the risk you have to take. you have to take the risk that you don't know what tomorrow will bring. But in his mind, he knew that the conditions that he was in was wrong, that this was not what God intended for him to be in. And so the desire for better caused him to run away, not understanding what tomorrow will bring. And to me, that's the kind of risk that modern day workers have to take. Understanding that, look, nobody holds your future but you. And it might be easy for us to sit here, or for me to sit here and say that. And that's why I said that it takes a great deal of mental strength and belief that, yo, I don't have to put up with this kind of injustice that I'm in. I can quit and I can start over. And how will I start over? I don't know. But guess what? You'll never know unless you put your foot out there. This, we know this. You know this comfort zone. And this is what you're used to and what you're accustomed to. So a lot of people felt, even those who were in slavery, felt that slavery was good, that it was okay because that is all they knew. That is all they knew. So they saw nothing wrong with it. But amongst them, there were those who knew that something is not right here. Nah, this is not for me. This is not for human beings. And I will rebel. I will fight against this. And they did what they had to do. And so, I mean, you could never empower everybody, and you can never, mentally free everybody. But I keep saying that for me is, how do we create one platform or a conversation that starts that makes people starts to believe in themselves and believe in their ability to make a life for themselves, which is outside and separate from subjecting themselves to this unfair and unjust society or employment society, because I know all of societies are just in the way how they grow away. They send with a school, like you rightly said earlier, they send with a school to work for somebody. Nobody send with a school to learn to think and use their hands and become creative. But others have done it. So how do we motivate and free up other people's minds to get to that level of thinking?
You see, that's why it's important. Like, you're making some general statements. Until you go and you do the research and you see the numbers and you hear the stories, then you better understand why some people resisted and why some people knew that they would be sacrificed for other people's liberation. Now, we're looking at this in hindsight in 2021. And so I'm saying to be patient with people, because we didn't always know what we know now. And it's in going and studying the literature and studying the narrative that you better understand who. And remember, one of the big points I made is our story is not 400 years of enslavement. That is not our singular narrative. We need to be clear on that. The European, and this is one of the things that may be hard for people to hear, but if we're going to analyze how we got here, we have to talk about the truth. So even for most people, understanding of the creator, it's a European concept. It's not indigenous and African people concept. But some people are so fixated on it, they're not even open to hearing, listen, that in of itself, organized religion is a part of the problem. Because it's somebody else's concept of the creator. It's one of the reasons why Obia, which is an African spirituality, and the beating of the gumbe drum was banned in Belize, because the oppressors had a fear from their experience with the Haitian Revolution and voodoo as a spirituality, that it inspired people to resist. And in their case, they won. And so when we're talking about 400 years of enslavement, we're talking about labor, people working and not being paid for over 400 years. It's a different type of enslavement as what we're going through now, because the minimum wages are not living wages. There's no way you can expect people to have a fair quality of life being paid the wages we're paid, to work the hours we work and take the risk that we take as workers. So that 400 years is a continuum. So using the Gregorian calendar, the European calendar, they say we're in 2021. That's what they say, the Europeans. We accept it. But they have a benchmark of BC that they call before the Christian era or before the Common Era. Before that era, African people contributed to world civilization. So even when you use a moderate time frame, we're looking at 4,236 years before 2021, which is about 6,257 yeyears ago. 6,257 years ago. Contrast that to 400 years of enslavement. I mean, the 400 years would be within that 6,257. But my point is, it's still over 5,000 years. So not only to focus on our enslavement, that's a portion of our story as African people. We have a bigger story. And so it's to bear that in mind as well. And even now, how can you say that most employers look at employees as human beings, not wanting them to join unions? How can you say that? These are our people at times who are part of that enslavement.
Yeah. That is the saddest part. Yeah. That is the saddest part, and I have to agree with you there that it is people like me and you that foster, facilitate, and keep that kind of modern day slavery alive. And having now been or having now be now that I'm involved in unionism and union work, I'm seeing it for myself. And today I found myself, just to quickly throw this in, I found myself in Belize City and Ladyville, meeting with the fire chief and the firemen. And that was exactly what I said when I met with the fire chief, in the presence of these men who were who are a bit up in arms across the country in terms of certain decisions that the fire chief wanted to impose on them over the last month. I said to him, we're dealing with people here. We cannot come up with policies and decisions that will affect people. But in fact, when we made those policies and decisions, we did not even think about the human impact or the impact that that would have on these individuals as human. We saw them as pretty much things, as machines, as inferior to we. So we that the boss here, and we could just make decisions, not understanding that these people have families. And so you're right. People like me and you are responsible for why this kind of modern day slavery or slavery on a whole continues, whereby our people are undervalued. Their human aspect isn't being taken into any consideration. They're underpaid, as you rightly said, so they can't live a decent life or a life that is reflective of what somebody that works 8 or 9 hours a day should be living. And in most cases, despite the injustices that they suffer, sadly, they're fighting to hold on to remain in that environment because, like you rightly said, um, their exposure or the exposure that some of us may have, to be able to say that is not right. It is not there yet. And thanks for reminding me that we have to be patient. We have to be patient with our people. And as one sister once told me, uh, becoming frustrated and trying and using trying to shame people in an effort for them to come to the realization that the pain for you to feel, you're bringing it on yourself because you don't want to come to the realization that the environment in which you're subjecting yourself isn't right. And so that was long-winded, and I feel long-winded because it's like, you know, how every week it's the same thing, that it's a different challenge every week, but it's the same challenge every week in terms of how do I help my brother and my sister to open their mindset and for us to start this workers' revolution, whereby we get to understand that we can be on the same footing as our employers. Yes, they are the employers, but their business, the government, whatever institutions we're at, they cannot function without the workers, and that the workers are in fact uh, the individuals that makes everything happen. We're still not there yet as workers, as employees, as laborers of this country.
We've had, thanks, Brother Dean. We have Brother T said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Sister Cordelia said, a people without knowledge of their past is like a tree without roots. Brother Philip said, knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. And a part of the concern is that we not just come. We come from a legacy of people. Listen, if I want somebody, give me this book right now. It's called From Colony to Nation, Women Activists and the Gendering of Politics in Belize, 1912 to 1982 by Annie S. McPherson. Everybody, I've sent it to you electronically. But it's to understand that in the 1930s, let me see if I can read this real quickly for you to understand laborers in Belize, consciousness, political consciousness, how organized they were, and then the system stamped them out. Because I'm saying, how come in the 30s we were so organized, and in the 50s, what the hell happened? You don't even hear about the work of these organizers. So it says, it's talking about the League's petition reiterated this radical democratic vision. One of the few surviving texts written by working women. They're not Belizean no money no. It is a condensed expression of their consciousness after 11 months of open conflict with the racist colonial order, its vast class inequalities, and patriarchal privilege. Addressing Governor Burns directly, their traditional tone and form belied the radical content of their petition. Listen to what sister right in at the 30s, that believes. 1. May it please your excellency, your respectful petitioners are the female natives of British Honduras, popularly known and classified as Negroes, Spaniards, Indians, etc., and whose proper and legitimate home was, is, and ever shall be British Honduras. 2. We are a people who have suffered and are still suffering owing to the fact that we, as the government of British Honduras, have no voice in our country's affairs, and all sort of injustices are being meted out to us. 3. We, your humble petitioners, feel that the hour for such approach has come, and we humbly submit the following resolutions. It's only 2. Resolved A, that the franchise for female voters is too high, as there are only about 2% of the females of British Honduras who earns $25 per month, by which means the balance of 98% will have no vote. And also the age limit is too high. Women should have equal rights as men. B, be it further resolved that your petitioners submit for your excellency's consideration that we, the women of Belize, British Honduras, humbly beg your excellency to put it before the members of the Legislative Council, and that it is the wish of the women of Belize, British Honduras, that the women be given womanhood suffrage in voting for the coming election of the Legislative Council, and the age limit be 21 years. And to further submit to your excellency that even though condition may change, that is, wages may go up, it will never reach $25 per month for the 98% above mentioned. We, your excellencies, humble petitioners, as in duty bound, do earnestly pray for favorable consideration. No, we know about that story there. Anybody tell we about a level of brother? When I tell you, when you do the research, and you realize who for we people and they're up, you're here. Then talk about different ethnicities. Their sisters and brothers not made it rock, brother. So it
Yeah,
inspires me.
yeah, yeah. You said you emailed me that book, but and I think we spoke about this book about 3 weeks ago, right? Um, when we discussed women in unionism. I think that is one, but I don't know to which email do you recall? Because I unfortunately I have not received it yet.
I'll resend it to you at 7:30 though, so it's time for the people's mic. Let me just read this. Mandela Wade said, "Our issue goes back to experience and education. A more educated society brings the type of consciousness we lack. Too many of our people are vulnerable because of a lack of knowledge." And it's 7:30. The mic is yours, Breda Dean.
Okay, thanks, YaYa, and thanks for enlightening us with your wealth of knowledge. I think outside of Brother Philip that delves in data on a daily basis, if not on an hourly basis, I think you're the individual that I would have to refer to when I say when I speak about being a bookworm. And
You can't know who that Sister Sandra Cowie. Look here, I can't back that Sister Water.
really, I reach out to Miss on several occasions, and I think that owe I owe her a phone call or two because during the height of the consultation with the government, she made an effort to make sure she touched base with me every week to share some knowledge and to give advice. And even after that, we spoke, but I have not heard from her in about 2 to 3 weeks. So I think thanks for bringing her name up because I think it's high time that I hear from her in terms of several issues that are unfolding because you are right, yeah, she's well read, well read. There's not a topic that the Miss Sandra Koi has not touched on that with a sense empowerment as well. And as they say, knowledge is power. So as you rightly said, we're now at the at 7:32, and in the second half of our show, what we try to do is to engage with those who have taken the time to join us, to hear from them, to hear what are their thoughts, um, and for them to participate in the conversation. So if I quickly glance on my screen here, I see we have 9 participants. So to Brother Philip, Sister Pitt, Sister Cordelia, I believe Sister Sean Morera, Brother Mandela. We invite you guys, Brother Irvin, we invite you to participate in the conversation. Tonight we're discussing just workers empowerment, the power of workers, and how do we bring back that consciousness, and how do we, as Sister YaYa, one of her favorite words is how do we organize? I think that is key to everything organization. And so the mic is for our listeners. The mic is for those who have joined us tonight. Please feel free to participate in the conversation.
Good night, everybody. Are you hearing me?
Good night, yes.
Loud and clear.
As you and YaYa spoke, I was thinking, now, Dean, you are the president of the Public Service Union, and you have an executive that you work with. Now, listening to you, you understand a lot of things, which I was wondering if other persons in your executive understand. Would you say that they have a good understanding of some of the things that you seem to understand, the history, the reality of where we are, and the need to do? Because we can understand and speak a lot, but what are we going to do? That's the issue. What strategy will you use to get improved or fixed whatever you think is broken? Would you say that the people around you are at the level that you are at, or they understand? Because I think that we need structure, we need organization, we need strategy. And we can begin with those around us. you know. We don't have to try to build Rome in a day, but your executive, you know, you have the relevant meetings and the retreats or whatever you need to do so that you are sure that you have the support that you need. You one cannot do it. You need others. And then also you need to think about what is it that you really want to do? What is the objective? Yes, we know that we live in a country that things are out of whack. Many things need fixing. Many things are broken. Many things. Now, the education system, the health system, but then we have to choose and focus on the area that we want to focus on and plan the strategy and step by step.
Yeah,
I would allow somebody else to speak.
I think you asked some very deep questions there, Sister Pitts, and as you ask the question specifically, when you look around you, do those around you share not share the vision that you have in terms of what needs to be done, and more importantly, do they possess the knowledge that you possess, and how now do I take what I've learned from these kind of forums, what I've learned from my experience as leadership, to instill that in them. And there is a gap. There is a gap. There's not a gap all around. Tonight I have here with us as well Brother Tate, Sister Cordelia. These are two members who actually sit on the council, who I am confident have the knowledge, understand where we need to go, but I cannot say that as an entire executive, as an entire council, that knowledge and that vision is shared. And primarily, and one of the reasons for that is because or the biggest challenge there is that people are saying you have to come up with creative ways to impart that knowledge. But you would notice the Pitts, that to impart that knowledge, one, people have to be receptive, but two, people have to want to acquire knowledge for themselves. So like Sister YaYa, who has shared several books with me, the onus is now on me to find the time, to take the time to ensure that I read those books so that we can have, so that I can ask the relevant questions. And so one of the challenges that we face as a society is that everybody is pressuring us as leaders to find creative ways to get the information out. But a lot of mental empowerment or knowledge, for you to gain knowledge, it has to come from within. It's not simply putting together a PowerPoint presentation or a cartoon, as people say, "Buy, try something animated." It's not it's not that easy to get these kind of empowerment and empowering information out, and so people have to also have that drive. But I take seriously some of those questions that you asked me, because they seriously put me
And
up.
Dean, can I just say too that I know that the union should have the structure. I would think that they still have a structure of liaison officers. Don't they still have liaison officers?
Yes, they do, and that is part of the reasons why I make it my business to go out as I did today. And I'm pleased to report that both stations that I visited, I recruited a liaison officer, and I said to them, the only way you guys will be able to share the kind of, because when I go, I speak with a certain level of passion, and so they're like, yes, Mr. Flowers, man, yeah, but how do you now translate this into your workforce? I need one owner to join the liaison officers group for us to now.
But then you see, Dean, the liaison officers need training.
Yes.
The commitment only comes through understanding your role and what you can do. The help that they can give to the union, the strengthening of the union can come through them. But if they don't understand that they have an important role and they just see their role as well, telling the others in their office what happened, you know, for their role, just to tell the others where they happen, the way they happen now. No. Your role is more than that. But if you don't know, you don't see yourself as an important cog in the wheel. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, the word structure keeps coming up, but you really have to follow a pattern, you know, of making people understand and letting them know that they are important in this thing.
Yes.
And then maybe when they understand their importance, then maybe they will be committed, because it's commitment too. Commitment. Yeah. How do you get that commitment? Because days will be lean, there will be lean days, there will be low days, but you need people who will stick it through.
And thanks for that again, Sister Pete. And that is what I am saying, that when you speak of commitment, then that has to come from within. Nobody can give you that. That has to come from within. And so you, as a laborer, you as a part of a team, in whatever organization you're in, you have to want to improve not only yourself, but the environment around you. And that I can impart, and nobody can impart that. You have to have that drive and that will. So definitely. But coming back to your question in terms of liaison, yes, as a matter of fact, today we started our first liaison officers training in Dangriga, and hence the reason I had to take over for the IRA.
That sounds good.
So we have an excellent, we have a calendar thanks to our Secretary General. And if I can, I don't know if Mr. Trish could pull it up there, but I have here a flyer. It's a recruitment, actually, it's a liaison officers recruitment flyer, whereby we're offering training between July the 29th and September the 9th. And so today was Dangriga. So yes, Sister Pitts, we're taking heed to your advice. We understand the need for us to share the knowledge, share the power. And so, like I said, I am positive that things will improve. As you rightly said, you can't build Rome in a day, but we need to be able to at the same time measure our progress as we go along, so that we're not wasting time with these type of exercises. If anybody else would like to join the conversation, as I stated earlier, we're talking the power of workers tonight, and so it would be nice for us to hear from you. What is the power of workers?
I see my colleague Hubert is here.
Yes.
Hubert in the house. Hubert, are you there? Hubert Enriquez.
Yes, I'm here. Cynthia, I'm here. I'm listening. Actually, I'm coming a bit late. I'm sorry about that. I knew the meeting, but for some reason, I just seem to have slipped me the exact time. And I missed last week too, because last week was apparently a very important meeting that I missed.
Yeah.
For some reason, I didn't. I thought it was off, but obviously it was on. And I'll just have to tune in every week and hope that it's on still. No? But anyway, I've not heard much of the conversation, but it sounds like a very interesting topic, the power of workers. And,
Hubert, I was asking Dean if he thinks that the people around him, his executive, and not only his executive, but the wider body, if they are at the level that he is at, he understands the strugglers. He seems to understand, what is happening. But if you have others around you who don't understand, then the work is harder. It is only you. You have the vision. You have to be able to share that vision and get people on board. And I was thinking that can come through through training, a lot of training and imparting of the knowledge that you have and of getting that vision across. And it is work. It's work.
It is. It certainly is, and I think that you're right. Training is very, very important. I think there has to be an internal commitment or conviction on these matters. Sometimes it comes, you find that these things come naturally to some people, but for some people it has to be inculcated to an extent. But it does help to have training and to have people from, say, overseas to us. Well, if they do happen to have these courses or do happen to have these exchanges, it helps to see what other people are involved in, because I remember clearly when I went on several of those trips to the Caribbean countries, I was impressed with the way in which they were organized. They seemed to have been ahead of us in terms of their organization. They had the systems quite set up, the liaison officer system quite well set up, and they had the old buildings and so forth, and for some reason in Belize we seem to have, fell behind to an extent. They are a bit more progressive, and there are many more people who seem to have been more committed to the cause of the union. I suspect it's because of the fact that it was something that they had nurtured very well, and it does take time indeed. It requires a constant commitment. It's a work that always, because it never stops. It has to be, but it's also a selfless work, and that's perhaps the reason why there's always a dearth of people who get involved with unions. It's a very small clique who sometimes may be regarded as crazy, because it requires a level of selfishness or selflessness, sorry, because you're serving people. You want to ensure that the organization grows, and these are things that people don't always commit themselves to. And so when I find people who are like that, and I can see my brother Dean has the commitment. Not everybody has the kind of commitment that is required to carry through this kind of struggle, and there are going to be obstacles in a way, and your colleagues are going to fight against you sometimes when you want to carry the money. I recall several times when myself with the union, we had skirmishes in the union. The people were expelled from the union. My sister Sista was right there behind the side. She was a legal person helping to fight these cases. So it's good to have good people on the side. Find good people, find an attorney who will be able to assist in carrying your case. Because not all attorneys are going to be willing to handle these matters.
Yeah.
But there are going to be those who will find it. Like for instance, Miss Michelle Trapp. She has said that she's prepared to assist PS to unions in legal cases. So we have to use those kind of persons who come to the fore, to assist us in this battle. It is really a battle that is sometimes, it's sometimes not very thankful, but you have to just persist on your own conviction to a certain extent. And that's going to drive you, because otherwise the rewards are not necessarily there. You won't get the kind of rewards that you don't really want it anyway, but it won't come. And if it doesn't come, don't be discouraged because it doesn't come, because just know to yourself that in fact you're doing something right, and it's going to help the workers, and it's going to help the country to develop. That's how it goes. It doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't inevitably it doesn't result in the kind of reward that other persons who might be your peers would get if they were to be promoted, say in government, and so don't get discouraged. But the growth of the movement requires that people devote themselves to this kind of activity to ensure the sustenance of the well-being of workers. It's not a popular thing, but it's a basic thing to do, and one has to be committed to do it. That's what it's going to continue to do.
Dean, I know that we are in the pandemic, the COVID, and traveling might not be what it used to be before the pandemic when it comes to union persons traveling and collaborating with their brothers and sisters from other countries. Is it the case that that is not happening or happening at a very limited level? Because I think that that is one of the things that seem to make the persons strong and committed, as Hubert says, going to another country and noting their strengths and their weaknesses and seeing what they do and what they can achieve. Then that puts some kind of a fire in you, you know, you come back and you want to do better, you want to improve. Is it that opportunity is not here right now because of the pandemic?
You're perfectly on point with that question, and the answer to that is that yes, at this point in time, there are annual general meetings of the CPSC, the ILO, several meetings, and within the CPSA, there are several subcommittees that are in fact having meetings, or several meetings have been scheduled. However, most of them have been online, and that does in fact takes away from the exposure that union leaders would get to aid in their growth and development, that they wouldn't get from an online training session. I got a correspondence, I believe, last week, whereby I think a comment or a proposal was being made for one of those meetings as to whether or not it would be wise for us to continue with the online setting, because I think some of the members are feeling that we're not having the kind of impact that we should be having as an association with the online meetings. You know, again, if it is that you're having online sessions whereby you're only hearing a voice and you're not seeing what's happening, it's easy for you to lose focus. It's easy for you to miss important information. It's difficult for you to then have one-on-one conversation, to ask people what works for them, what are their challenges, what are their ideas, so that then you can bring that back. So we're struggling that, we're not struggling there, but the simple answer to your question is yes, the pandemic is affecting us, and it is now prohibiting that one-on-one, that face-to-face, that mingling outside of regional meetings and international meetings for us to gain knowledge and grow as individuals and as leaders. So hopefully the resumption of face-to-face meetings will resume. And just as a side note, while this is not a PSU show, but because you asked that question, PSU will be taking over the presidency of CPSA next year. And so if travel resumes, it may very well be that Belize will be hosting one of the biggest Caribbean public service conferences in 2022. But it all depends how this year goes, because this year they're having some challenges in even organizing the conference this year, which is being, I think it's Bahamas. Yeah, I think it's Bahamas that currently have the presidency, or Bermuda, one of them.
I know that a committee that I sit on, we had a meeting, and that is one of the points, and everybody agreed that we do need to meet physically, because it does affect. I mean, you do everything by virtual, you vote, you know, and especially if it's a meeting that you have to really debate issues which lead to the conclusion of certain things. You know, people can just be voting without even thinking about it, rather than putting forth the reasons why they are doing things. You know, you just vote. No. You want to discuss more as to why. You know, why are you thinking like that? Why are you doing that? And so I can understand that there is the need for some type of physical meeting. And it makes a difference.
Yeah. But just as an aside, though, just to continue the topic we started earlier in terms of the power of the union, one of my observations was that the unions in the Caribbean countries were very closely associated with credit unions. I think it helped because money is something which members sometimes are scarce of members, and if you're able to assist members in that way, it could help in invigorating the union. I noticed that most, in fact, when they have I was amazed when some years ago there was a credit union meeting in Belize, and most of the guys who were actually big in the unions were from the unions, and they came to Belize from the other Caribbean countries. And so I believe that that's an association we have to look at with a view to strengthening the unions, because once you go cater to people's needs in terms of financial and perhaps getting loans for housing and so forth, it will help to invigorate the union movement. So it is an association which we could use. I know that some years ago there was a civil service credit union which has gone defunct, which is very unfortunate, but it's something which really, I believe, was designed to assist, except that the process wasn't quite well associated with the PSU. In fact, at that time, the PSU was, the leadership was more involved with St. John's Credit Union, as I understand it. But it seems to have been an opportunity that was available for the unions for the civil servants and the unions, for instance. But there was also at that time things like the CBA, in which public officers used to associate. It's a social club basically. And I recall when I joined the public service, I was taken there to be nurtured, or to perhaps to be part of this whole system. You have to go to CBA to play ball or perhaps drink whiskey. The big guys there, and so it's easier to, it was I don't know how I read it, but I know that was part of a thing then, which is no longer the case. I didn't know what happened to the CBA building. I don't know what happened really.
It is still there. It is still there, but it is closed up.
Yes. But it was a good forum for socializing for public officers, no? Those years.
Well, it was a different cadre of public officers. They were older. They were coming from the colonial system. I don't think they were progressive thinkers. Well, they were progressive to a certain extent, because when you realize that the Public Service Union is 90, how many years old? 90 odd years old.
99.
99. And so well, as YaYa tells us and reads to us, in those days, the unions were stronger, and people saw the need. And so even though they were coming out of a colonial era, they saw the need for a union in the public service.
Yes, and I think what it points to, though, is just that there are these structures that perhaps we have to examine to see how you could actually perhaps tweak it to our own current situation, but with a view to getting people involved and interacting together. That's what we seem to have lacked, the interaction amongst people. And so in whatever way we could do it, by perhaps having these kind of social clubs, and having perhaps looking at the finance, looking at how we could perhaps create cooperatives and credit unions and so forth.
Yeah.
With a view to cater to some of our members' needs. That would be the way we have to, I think, look at go.
You're on point, brother Enriquez. I think when you brought up the point with regards to the credit unions, how do we provide more services? And I can tell you that is one way that we are cognizant that we need to go. We have to provide more services. Again, Sister Trisha, or Jensek, normally reminds us that many hands make work light, or light work. And there's a lot of wonderful ideas that are on the table. But unfortunately, the process to roll them out, or actions were very slow to act in rolling those ideas out, and those ideas have direct impact on our members and growing our membership and empowering back the union. And because and at the end of the day, all of them has financial implications, but you need people that will take on these projects. And one of the areas that we're struggling in that I'm realizing that, we don't have much people who wants to take on these projects. Like simple thing, we're at the 10% cut. We have an excellent idea to start promoting dry goods, whether it be rice, beans, flour, these type of goods that people use every day in their household. The union is in a position to do the bulk purchasing and do cost price to our members every 15th and ending, or every Saturday. You come in the different branch offices, just pick up your provision at cost price, as long as we cover the transport. Well, we don't even have to pay for transportation costs, because most of these producers now have them truck they deliver all over the place. So that's pretty much just the deliver what we need them to deliver. Investments, we have to grow investments. We have to look at, and this is one of the areas that I think our leaders in the past failed, because I don't know how we were financially, but we made absolutely no investment. We made absolutely no investment in any sector of the society. That today, when you travel, or at least the stories I hear from Brother Delon, he would say, well, the union in Barbados have gas stations. They have, some of them have shopping centers. We didn't make absolutely any investment, and as a result now, it's a bit difficult to attract membership and to organize membership, but the opportunity still exists for us to do that, because we still have a certain level of financial leverage, we have some money, but how do you make people understand that we have to take the risk? And most of these investments wouldn't be risk investment, because they could pay for themselves. So I take your point, Brother Hubert, because it goes along the line that I realize that as a union, as one of the largest union, if not the largest union, public service union must go down that road. We must make the investment, and we must have greater economic impact on our members for us to get bigger and stronger back and be a power to be reckoned with when it comes to addressing the social ills that is plaguing the society. We're at 8:02. I don't know if anybody else have anything to contribute. Sister Cordelia, let me see if anything is in the chat. The working relationships have changed significantly, though in this era. Hence, I believe the dwindling of union power. But I believe that we should never ever lose hope. And I don't think that any set of business owner or set of politician has more intelligence than any union in this country. The problem is organization, and getting those individuals who associate with the different unions to come to the table, put with differences aside, and put in place plans, structures, and execute ideas that, of course, will impact the greater good of the membership. Sister YaYa, I see you on the back end. I guess you call.
Yes, it's time to lock off. It has been a very engaging intergenerational conversation with unionists. One of the things I want to say, though, is as tough as the conversation may be, we need to be kind and loving and truthful about the betrayal of people by union leaders. Once trust is lost, then people know the dirtiness. Now that people don't know, then why would people want to work with you anymore? And people know thing about you. I think people don't know about you, and I'm not shush the real dirtiness. And so there has to be a space where you be honest. Anyway, Sister Cordelia even wants to say something before we go quick.
Our whole tongue for not trust issue, right? Because I don't know how much of a factor that is sometimes when we still go out to that poll and vote. But
But
I understand the position, especially when it comes to feeling betrayed by union leaders, yes, because we are supposed to be different.
Respect, Sistrin.
Just before, just before we leave, I just wanted to mention, may he rest in peace and rise in glory. George Defina had passed because Sandra Messiah had said that he did pass recently. And if anybody know who George Defina is, when it comes to union movement within the region, he's an icon.
Yes. Hubert, I think we had dealings with him.
Yes, yes, yes.
He had come and done a lot of training with us here.
Yes, that's true. Very true.
Respect, thanks for that information.
quick question, YaYa. Sister Pitts, when you said he had come to do a lot of training here, how was that organized? Because that is something that, like I said, Sister Messiah has offered, and she will be effecting that with the Public Service Union. But in terms of, you mentioned that he had come, did you guys organize that? Was that as part of their training plan? Please share with your knowledge so we could engage these people.
We were a part of the Caribbean, I don't remember the name. Hubert, you remember
Caribbean
the
Public Service Association.
Yes, and we had close links with them.
Yeah, but George came mostly through ILO though, because he was ILO workers rep.
Yes, the ILO,
And then Sister Messiah would have come to PSI or the CPSA, no?
Okay, yeah.
We didn't have a lot of training in those days. I mean, for some reason, we don't have as much training we had in those days. But those are sponsored training by those organizations, and so perhaps the funding is dwindling now. But there was many training.
Do you have those links, Dean?
Yes.
Are there those links with the PSI and the Caribbean?
We have a direct link with the sub-region office of the Caribbean sub-region office of PSI through Sister Sandra Messiah, and she's the one who has informed us that she will be setting up, I think, a 3 series or a 4 series training with us. So thanks for that, for bringing me back where I should be, Brother Hubert. I was saying CPSA, but you are right. It's PSI. But I'm glad to hear also that the good brother that has passed away, and may he rest in peace, was via ILO, which means that we now have to tap into the ILO to start taking advantage of our membership, because we pay dues to these institutions annually. So we should, in fact, ensure that we're getting our money's worth. So, since Jen,
look at it, 7 minutes after 8, you know, get on Breda. I have a big responsibility tomorrow morning, and I'm not going to sleep no time soon. But I really appreciated the conversation. Thanks, Brother Dean. Thanks, Sister Musile, Cynthia Pitts, Brother Herbert, Brother Philip, Sister Cordelia, Sean, Mandela, Mandela, Brother Mandela, Brother Irvin, Sister Annette. Thanks so much for taking the hour and 8 minutes out. We appreciate, continue to tell people about this meeting every Thursday night and share it on YouTube. What matters is that we are consistent with meeting. So thanks very much. Y'all stay safe.
Good night, everybody.
Hello.
Enjoy the long weekend. Enjoy the long weekend courtesy of Sister YaYa.
It's a collective effort, I keep telling you. Thanks.